My name is Elena Harrison and I'm 31 years old. 7 days ago, I sat in the Oslo headquarters of Nordstar Shipping, the largest maritime shipping company in Scandinavia, signing documents that transferred $340 million in company shares to my name. The CEO, Lars Eriksson, shook my hand warmly. "Your grandfather was a visionary," he said. "He built this company from one fishing boat in 1965 to what we are today. He always said his granddaughter would carry on his legacy. We're honored to have you as our majority shareholder." Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the Oslo fjord, the very waters where my grandfather had started his journey 60 years ago. My phone buzzed for the 17th time that day. My older sister Victoria calling again. I'd been ignoring her calls for 3 days, ever since the press release announced that Elena Harrison, American heir, had inherited controlling interest in Nordstar Shipping from her grandfather Magnus Larsson. The same sister who, 6 months ago at our grandfather's funeral, had taken the entire visible estate, $8 million in us assets, while I received nothing but a plane ticket and a handwritten note that said go to Oslo. Follow this address. Trust me. She laughed at me that day, holding the estate documents while I held an airline ticket. "Grandpa left you on vacation? That's hilarious. Enjoy Norway while I enjoy actual money." Now she wanted to talk. Now she'd seen the news. Now she understood that the plane ticket wasn't a consolation prize. It was the key to a fortune 40 times larger than what she'd taken. Before I tell you how a plane ticket to Norway became a $340 million inheritance, please like and subscribe if you enjoy these stories. I'd love to know where you're watching from. Now let me tell you how being the overlooked granddaughter led to discovering a secret legacy my sister never knew existed. I'm the younger of 2 daughters. Victoria is 4 years older, and from childhood, she was the golden child. The one who did everything right, checked every box, followed every rule my parents set. She went to Yale, got her MBA from Wharton, married a successful investment banker named Derek, lived in Greenwich, Connecticut in a beautiful colonial house. She was everything my parents wanted in a daughter. I was the opposite. I went to a state school in Colorado, studied environmental science instead of business, worked for a small conservation nonprofit making $55,000 a year, lived in a modest apartment in Denver, drove a used Subaru. I dated a teacher named James, who made even less than I did. I wasn't rich or successful by my family's standards, but I was happy doing work that mattered to me. My parents never understood that. Elena could have done so much more, my mother would say at family gatherings. She had good grades. She could have gone to a better school. But she chose environmental science. Now she works at a nonprofit saving birds or whatever. It's nice that she cares about nature, but it's not a real career. My father would add, Victoria is a vice president at her firm. Elena counts penguins. The comparison is embarrassing. My sister would smile that superior smile, satisfied to be the favored daughter. She'd worked hard for that position, made all the right choices, married the right man, lived the right life. She'd earned being the golden child through pure conformity. But my grandfather Magnus was different. Grandpa Magnus was my mother's father, a Norwegian immigrant who'd come to America in 1969, after building a successful business in Norway. He'd met my grandmother, an American woman studying in Oslo, married her, and moved to the States. He'd worked as a shipping consultant in New York, built a comfortable life, raised my mother in suburban New Jersey. He talked about Norway constantly. About the fjords, the mountains, the sea. "Norway's in my blood," he'd say. "The ocean, the ships, the cold water. That's where I became who I am." He'd show me photos from his youth. A young man standing on a fishing boat, working on docks, eventually owning boats, then a small fleet. "I had a business there," he'd tell me when I was young. Before I came to America, small shipping company. I sold it when I moved here, invested the money, built a different life, but I always missed the sea. I was the only grandchild who really listened to his stories. Victoria would nod politely, and change the subject to her work, her achievements, her life. I'd ask questions. "What is it like running a shipping company? Tell me about the boats. Do you miss it?" Every day he'd admit. But I made my choice. Your grandmother wanted to be near her family. America was her home. So I sold the business and came here. I don't regret it. But I do miss it. When I was 16, Grandpa took me to Norway. Just the two of us. A 2-week trip. I want to show you where I come from, he said. Show you what I built before I left. We flew to Oslo, then drove along the coast. He showed me the docks where he'd worked as a young man. The office where he'd started his first company. The boats, now much larger and more modern, that belonged to companies operating in the same waters where he'd once fished. This is your heritage too, Elena, he said one night, standing on a fjord dock at midnight under the summer sun that never fully set. You're half Norwegian. This ocean is in your blood even if you've never lived here. I love it, I told him honestly. The water, the mountains, the way everything feels old and new at the same time. You're the only one who understands, he said. Victoria came here once and complained the entire time. Said it was cold and boring and there was nothing to do. But, you see what I see. You feel what I feel. That trip changed something in me. I returned to the US determined to study environmental science, to work in conservation, to protect the natural world I'd fallen in love with in Norway. My parents thought I was wasting my potential. Grandpa understood completely. You're following your heart, he said. That's what I did when I started with one fishing boat. Don't let anyone tell you that caring about the world is less important than making money. Over the years I stayed close to Grandpa. We talked weekly, video called regularly, shared articles about marine conservation and shipping news. He'd tell me about changes in the industry, new technologies, environmental regulations. I'd tell him about my work, the projects I was involved in, the small victories we'd win at the nonprofit. You're making a difference, he'd say. That matters more than most people realize. Victoria rarely called Grandpa unless she needed something. A loan, advice on an investment, connections to someone he knew. She saw him as a resource. I saw him as my grandfather, the person who understood me better than anyone else in my family. 2 years ago, Grandpa had a stroke. Mild, but it scared everyone. He recovered mostly, but he was slower, more tired, aware of his mortality. He updated his will, met with estate attorneys, put his affairs in order. I want everything clear, he told me during one of our calls. No confusion about what happens when I'm gone. Don't talk like that, I said. You're doing fine. I'm 89, Elena. I'm not doing fine. I'm old, but I've made arrangements. Everything is taken care of. I assumed he meant his house in New Jersey, his savings, his US assets. He'd accumulated about $8 million over his lifetime through investments and his consulting work. I figured that would be divided between his children and grandchildren. I didn't care about the money. I just didn't want to lose him. Grandpa died 6 months ago. Heart failure in his sleep, peaceful, just like he would have wanted. The funeral was in New Jersey, over 200 people attending. He'd been respected in the shipping industry, loved by friends, admired by colleagues. Victoria gave a speech about what a wonderful grandfather he'd been, how much she'd learned from him. I noticed she couldn't name a single specific conversation they'd had, or story he'd told. My speech was different. I talked about Norway, about the trip we'd taken when I was 16, about how he'd taught me that following your heart was more important than following expectations, about how he'd supported my choices even when everyone else questioned them. After the funeral came the estate reading. The attorney, Robert Morrison, gathered the family at Grandpa's house. My mother, my Aunt Jennifer, Victoria, and me. The will was straightforward. The house, worth about $2 million, would be sold and split between my mother and Aunt Jennifer. Various personal items were distributed to family and friends. The remaining $6 million in cash and investments was left entirely to Victoria. To my granddaughter Victoria, the will read, who has built a successful career and stable life, I leave my remaining assets with confidence she'll manage them responsibly. Victoria actually smiled. $6 million, on top of her already comfortable life. My mother and aunt would each get $1 million from the house sale. I got nothing mentioned in the will. Nothing except a sealed envelope the attorney handed me at the end. Your grandfather left this for you specifically, Mr. Morrison said, with instructions to give it to you after the will reading. Inside the envelope was a plane ticket to Oslo, departing in 1 week, and a handwritten note in Grandpa's shaky script. Elena, go to Oslo. Go to this address, Nordstar Shipping Headquarters, Harborview Tower, Oslo. Ask for Lars Eriksson, CEO Do. Show him this ticket. Trust me. Everything you need to know is waiting for you there. And love you. You're the one who understood. Grandpa Magnus. I stared at the note, confused. Victoria looked over my shoulder and laughed. You got a plane ticket? Grandpa left you a vacation? Oh my god, that's hilarious. And an address, I said quietly. Probably some sightseeing suggestion, Victoria said, already putting the $6 million inheritance documents into her Louis Vuitton bag. Meanwhile, I got actual assets. Looks like Grandpa knew who to trust with real money. Victoria, that's cruel, my mother said, but she didn't disagree with the sentiment. Elena, maybe he wanted you to have a trip to Norway. You always loved it there. That's sweet. It's weird, my Aunt Jennifer said. Why give her a plane ticket instead of cash? Why be so cryptic? Because Grandpa liked drama, Victoria said dismissively, giving Elena a mystery trip instead of just including her in the will. Well, enjoy Oslo, little sister. Take lots of pictures. I'll be enjoying my inheritance. I looked at the ticket, the note, the address. Something told me this wasn't just a sightseeing trip. Grandpa had been deliberate, precise. He'd said everything I needed to know was waiting in Oslo. He'd said to trust him. So I decided to trust him. 1 week later, I boarded the flight to Oslo. James, my boyfriend, wanted to come with me. Something feels significant about this, he said. I want to be there to support you, I think. I need to do this alone, I said. Whatever Grandpa wanted me to find, he wanted me to find it myself. The flight was 11 hours. I spent it reading the note over and over, trying to understand. What was at Nordstar Shipping headquarters? Why did I need to see the CEO? What had Grandpa set up? If you've ever been given something that seemed worthless until you understood its true meaning, if you've ever been dismissed as the lesser sibling, only to discover you were the chosen one, leave a comment below. Subscribe if you want to hear how a plane ticket became a $340 million inheritance. Because what I found in Oslo changed everything. I landed in Oslo on a Tuesday morning. The city was exactly as I remembered from my trip with Grandpa 15 years ago. Clean, modern, surrounded by water and mountains. I took a taxi to the address on the note, Harborview Tower, a glass skyscraper overlooking the Oslo fjord. Nordstar Shipping occupied floors 15 through 20. The lobby was impressive. Modern Scandinavian design, photos of massive container ships, a history wall showing the company's growth from 1965 to present. I approached the reception desk. I'm here to see Lars Eriksson. I have an appointment. Well, not an appointment exactly. But I was told to come here. I showed them the note from Grandpa and the plane ticket. The receptionist's eyes widened. Ms. Harrison? Elena Harrison? Yes, Mr. Eriksson has been expecting you. Please come with me immediately. She led me to the 20th floor, to a corner office with panoramic views of the fjord. A tall man in his 60s stood up from behind a massive desk. Ms. Harrison. Elena, finally. He shook my hand warmly, speaking perfect English with a slight Norwegian accent. I'm Lars Eriksson, CEO of Nordstar Shipping. Your grandfather was my mentor, my friend, and the founder of this company. We've been waiting for you. Waiting for me? I asked, confused. I don't understand. My grandfather worked in shipping consulting in New York. He left Norway in 1969. What does he have to do with Nordstar Shipping? Lars smiled. Your grandfather didn't just work in shipping. He founded Nordstar in 1965 with one fishing boat. By 1969, he had 15 boats and was expanding into commercial shipping. When he married your grandmother and moved to America, he didn't sell the company completely. He sold 60% to his business partners, but he retained 40% ownership. He's been a silent partner for 54 years. I sat down heavily. My grandfather owned 40% of this company, not just owned. He was deeply involved from America. Conference calls, strategic decisions, board meetings via video once that technology existed. He helped build Nordstar into what it is today. We're now the largest shipping company in Scandinavia. We operate 250 ships, employ 12,000 people, generate $3 billion in annual revenue. Your grandfather's 40% stake is currently valued at approximately $340 million. The room spun. $340 million. And he left that to me? I whispered. His will, filed here in Norway, names you as sole heir to his Nordstar shares. We've been waiting for you to claim them. Your grandfather updated the will 2 years ago, right after his stroke. He was very specific. Everything goes to his granddaughter Elena Harrison. Not Victoria. Not split between his grandchildren. You. Only you. Lars pulled out a file. He also left you this letter. He wanted you to read it after I explained about the company. I opened the envelope with shaking hands. My dearest Elena, if you're reading this in Lars's office, then I'm gone and you've finally discovered what I've spent 54 years building. I told you once that Norway was in my blood. That the ocean was my first love. That's true. But what I didn't tell you is that I never really left. I sold majority control of my company, but I kept enough shares to remain an owner. To still be part of what I'd started. For 54 years, I've watched Nordstar grow from 15 boats to 250. From a small Norwegian operation to an international shipping empire. I've been part of every major decision, every expansion, every success. My partners knew. The board knew. But I kept it secret from my family in America. Your grandmother knew, but she passed away before I could tell you children. Your mother doesn't know. Victoria doesn't know. Only you, right now, know the truth. Why keep it secret? Because I didn't want my American life to be about money. I didn't want my family to see me as the wealthy shipping magnate. I wanted to be just Magnus, the Norwegian immigrant consultant. I wanted relationships based on love, not inheritance expectations. I wanted to see which of my children and grandchildren valued me for me. Victoria valued what she thought I could give her. She called when she needed money, advice, connections. She saw me as a resource. You called because you wanted to hear my stories. You visited because you loved me. You went to Norway with me not because you expected anything, but because you wanted to understand where I came from. That's why you're sitting in Lars's office right now reading this letter. Because you're the one who deserves this inheritance. Because you understand what this company means. It's not just money. It's legacy. It's connection to the sea, to Norway, to where I started. $340 million is yours now. That's the current value of my shares. But it's worth more than money. It's worth knowing that your grandfather saw you, valued you, trusted you with his life's work. You're the granddaughter who understood, who listened to my stories, who fell in love with Norway the way I did, who cared about the ocean and ships and heritage. Victoria got the money I accumulated in America. $8 million that I earned doing consulting work. That's appropriate for someone who sees life as a business transaction. You get the fortune I built doing what I loved. The company I never really left. The legacy that mattered. I have some instructions. First, learn about the company. Lars will teach you everything. You don't need to run it, we have excellent management. But, understand what Nordstar does. How it operates. Its role in global shipping. And Norwegian economy. Second, consider the environmental impact. Shipping creates pollution. I've pushed for years to make our fleet more sustainable. You have the power as majority shareholder to accelerate those efforts. Use your environmental science background to make Nordstar the greenest shipping company in the world. That's your purpose now. Third, don't tell Victoria until you're ready. Let her enjoy her $8 million. When she finds out about your inheritance, she'll be angry. She'll claim it's unfair. She'll say the wealth should be split. But remember, I made my choice deliberately. I gave each of you what you valued. She valued money. You valued meaning. I gave her money. I gave you meaning, which happens to also be worth a lot of money. Finally, know that I'm proud of you. You chose to save birds and count penguins and work for $55,000 a year because you cared about something beyond yourself. That's character. That's integrity. That's why you're sitting in a shipping company office discovering you're worth $340 million. Because people who don't chase wealth often end up with more than people who do. I love you, Elena. Take care of my company. Take care of the ocean. Take care of yourself. And enjoy the look on Victoria's face when she finds out. Grandpa Magnus. I cried reading that letter. Tears streamed down my face in a CEO's office in Oslo, overwhelmed by grief and gratitude and the sheer weight of what my grandfather had done. He'd seen me. He'd valued me. He'd trusted me with everything that mattered to him. Lars gave me time to compose myself. Then he spent the next 4 hours walking me through the company. The fleet, the routes, the operations, the environmental initiatives they'd already started. The plans for expansion. The shareholders, the board, the management structure. Your 40% makes you the largest single shareholder, Lars explained. The remaining 60% is split among 15 investors and partners. No one else has more than 8%, which means you have significant power. Not majority control technically, but enough influence that nothing major happens without your approval. You're effectively the most important voice at this company. I don't know anything about running a shipping business, I said. You don't need to, Lars assured me. That's our job. You're the owner. You set the vision. You approve major decisions. You use your power to steer the company toward your values. Your grandfather did that from America for 54 years. You can do it better because you have the environmental expertise we need. Over the next 3 days, I met with executives, toured ships, reviewed operations. I saw firsthand the environmental challenges of shipping. The fuel consumption, the emissions, the ocean impact. I also saw the sustainability initiatives Nordstar had started. Cleaner fuels, more efficient routes, waste reduction. Your grandfather pushed for all of this, the chief operations officer told me. He said his granddaughter would care about these issues. He wanted us to be ahead of regulations, not just compliant. By the end of the week, I'd signed documents transferring the shares to my name. I'd joined the board of directors. I'd set up accounts to manage the dividend payments, about $15 million annually based on current profits. I'd established a sustainability task force with authority and budget to green the entire fleet. I'd done everything Grandpa had prepared me to do. The news broke when Nordstar filed the required shareholder disclosure documents. American Air inherits major stake in Nordic shipping giant, the maritime industry publications reported. Then the mainstream media picked it up. Colorado conservation worker discovers $340 of inheritance. Grandfather's secret. Norwegian shipping fortune left to granddaughter. My phone started ringing. Victoria called 17 times the first day. My mother called. My aunt. Even Derek, Victoria's husband. I ignored them all. I was in Norway, learning about my inheritance, understanding what Grandpa had built. I wasn't ready to deal with family drama yet. But after 3 days of calls, I finally answered Victoria's 18th attempt. Elena, what the hell is going on? Her voice was shrill. I saw the news. You inherited a shipping company? $340 million? That's impossible. Grandpa left you a plane ticket. He left me the money. He left you his American money? I said calmly. $8 million that he earned doing consulting work. He left me his Norwegian fortune. He kept it secret. He wanted to see which of us actually valued him versus valued what we thought he'd give us. Turns out, I valued him. You valued his money. So he gave you money. And he gave me his life's work. That's not fair, Victoria said. I'm the older sister. I'm the successful one. I should have gotten the larger inheritance. $340 million should be split between us. You're getting everything and I'm getting almost nothing. You're getting $8 million, almost nothing. Dollars, I reminded her. Plus your own career, your husband's income, your house, your life. You're not exactly destitute. Compared to $340 million? I'm getting scraps. Elena, you have to share this. It's not right that you get everything. We're sisters. Family. You owe me half of that inheritance. I don't owe you anything, I said firmly. Grandpa made his choice. He knew exactly what he was doing. He left detailed letters explaining why. You mocked me at the funeral. You laughed at my plane ticket. You called it hilarious that I got a vacation while you got real money. Well, my vacation turned out to be worth 40 times what you got. That's not my fault. That's Grandpa's deliberate choice. You must have manipulated him, Victoria said, convinced him somehow. Made him think you cared more. This isn't right. I'm going to challenge the will. I'm going to sue. The will is Norwegian, I said. Filed in Norway, executed under Norwegian law. You'd have to sue in Norwegian courts, prove undue influence across international borders, fight against a document created 2 years ago when Grandpa was completely sound mind. Good luck with that. It'll cost you more in legal fees than you'd ever win. So, you're just going to keep everything? Not share anything with your sister? I'm going to do exactly what Grandpa wanted, I said. I'm going to run his company responsibly. I'm going to use my environmental background to make it sustainable. I'm going to honor his legacy. What you do with your 8 million is your business. What I do with my inheritance is mine. Victoria hung up. She called back an hour later, crying. Elena, please, I'm sorry for what I said at the funeral. I'm sorry I laughed. I didn't know. Can we talk about this? Can we work something out? There's nothing to work out, I said. Grandpa's decision was final. I'm not changing it. But I need money, Victoria said. Derek's firm is having troubles. We have expenses. The house, the cars, our lifestyle. 8 million sounds like a lot, but it's not once you factor in taxes and taxes. Our cost of living. I need more. You have 340 million. You could share some without even feeling it. You have a VP salary, I said. Derek has his income. You live in Greenwich. You have resources I never had. If you need money, adjust your lifestyle or work harder. Don't come to me expecting to fix your problems because I inherited something you didn't. You're really going to do this? Victoria asked. You're really going to cut me off. I'm not cutting you off, I said. We're sisters. I'm happy to have a relationship with you if you can accept that Grandpa made his choice and it wasn't about you. But if all you want is access to my money, then yes, we don't have anything to discuss. She hung up again. Over the next weeks, the calls kept coming. Victoria called asking for loans. My mother called saying I should help my sister. Derek called trying to pitch me investment opportunities. Even distant relatives I barely knew called congratulating me and subtly asking if I planned to share my good fortune with family. I said no to everyone. Not out of cruelty, but because Grandpa had been clear. He'd given Victoria what she valued, money she could access immediately. He'd given me what I valued, a legacy, a connection to him, a purpose. Sharing my inheritance would undermine his entire point. 6 months after claiming my inheritance, I was back in the US visiting my mother in New Jersey. Victoria showed up uninvited. We need to talk, she said. About Grandpa's estate, about fairness, about what you owe this family. I don't owe anyone anything, I said. Grandpa left me his company because I was the one who listened to his stories. The one who loved Norway. The one who understood what that company meant to him. You got money. I got legacy. He gave each of us what suited us. Legacy doesn't pay bills, Victoria said. I've had expenses. Derek's firm had layoffs. We've had to dip into the inheritance. 8 million seemed like a lot 6 months ago. Now it's not enough. Meanwhile, you're sitting on 340 million and doing what? Still working at your nonprofit? Still living modestly? You're not even using the money. Give me some. You don't need it all. What I do with my inheritance is none of your business, I said. Whether I live modestly or extravagantly, whether I work or retire, whether I donate it all or keep it all, that's my decision. You got your inheritance. It's not my fault you're going through it faster than expected. You're a selfish bitch, Victoria said. You always acted so humble and down to earth. But now that you have money, you're just as greedy as anyone. You won't share. You won't help family. You're holding on to every penny. I'm honoring Grandpa's wishes, I said. He wanted me to have this inheritance. He wanted you to have yours. He knew what he was doing. If you can't respect that, if you can't be my sister without wanting my money, then we don't have a relationship. Victoria left. She hasn't called since. My mother occasionally reaches out, half-hearted attempts to convince me to be generous with Victoria. I've stopped answering those calls. I'm still in Oslo half the time now, working with Nordstar's leadership on sustainability initiatives. I kept my nonprofit job, and I work remotely for them, splitting my time between Colorado and Norway. James and I got engaged. He loves that I haven't let the money change me, that I still care about the same things I did before. The $340 million inheritance hasn't changed my lifestyle dramatically. I bought a modest apartment in Oslo. I drive a slightly newer Subaru. I donate significantly to environmental causes. But I live essentially the same life I did before, just with the security of knowing I'll never struggle financially, and the purpose of knowing I'm protecting an ocean legacy my grandfather spent his life building. Every time my phone rings with Victoria's number, which happens less and less now, I think about Grandpa's letter. About how he gave each of us what we valued. Victoria valued money she could spend immediately. I valued connection, legacy, understanding. He gave her 8 million. He gave me 340 million, But more importantly, he gave me his trust, his company. That's worth more than any amount of money. That's proof that the quiet granddaughter who listened to stories was the one who mattered most. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated by family who didn't see your value, leave a comment. Subscribe if you believe that inheritance isn't always about who's most successful, but about who understands what's truly being passed down. Share this with someone who needs to hear that being overlooked doesn't mean being undervalued. Sometimes it means someone special was watching all along, keeping secrets, preparing a legacy for the kids. One person who'd treasure it.